The Wes Penra Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The First Level of Learning. http://wespenry.com. Solution Section. Solution Paper Number 3, Expansion on the Living Library. DNA, an Ascension. By Wes Penra, Friday, August 7, 2011. 1. Borrowing from, and returning to, the living library. We live in a universe which is a free will zone, which means that anyone is allowed to do whatever they want to do in order to contribute to the overall experiment. The living library was set up as a giant peaceful experiment, where virtually everything that's growing and developing in form of plant life, animal and human life were seeded onto this planet during different time periods. The flora and the fauna come from all over the universe, not only from our galaxy. Our planet is not the only living library in the universe, but certainly one of the richest and most beautiful. Not only the Pleiadians call this planet a living library, it's a term generally used, so it seems, by aliens who know about it, and all aliens that are here on the planet or in Earth near space do. A library, per definition, is a place where you can borrow something if you promise to return it to keep the library going. So, in cosmic terms, it's nothing wrong with genetic engineering of the species of this planet, as long as it is done to enhance life and the library in general. It is not meant to be taken advantage of, and to harm the species living here. Therefore, what ETs like the Anunnaki, the Zeta Greys, and a few others do is not considered ethical or just. This is why ET renegades like the Pleiadians, and confederations like the Guardian Alliance are helping us regaining our perception of multidimensionality. Almost everything and anything you can think of that we humans need in form of food, medicine, and life-enhancing herbs etc. is present here on Earth, in nature. We basically don't need any pharmaceutical drugs to suppress the symptoms of underlying causes, which is the way most diseases are treated today. The remedy for basically any human condition exists in nature. The problem is that we have forgotten how to use the living library. We go out in the forest, are climbing mountains, or walking by the ocean, without understanding what it is we are seeing around us. All the plants, mushrooms, herbs, they just grow there and we have no clue what they can be used for. 2. From the Dark Ages to Big Pharma and the witch hunt on alternative medicine. In the Dark Ages, the witches knew pretty well how to use the living library. However, the Catholic Church, who didn't want people to be well, accused those who used the library to heal people of witchcraft and burned them on the stake. Eventually, this very important knowledge disappeared from the Western world, or went underground. Also, much of it is still known by natives and tribes around the world, who have still not been totally destroyed by Western intruders. We learn in school that punishment for witchcraft is something of the past and of course doesn't exist anymore. Wrong. The only difference is that it's not done so overtly, and no one is burned at the stake. Today, we have Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, who have more insights in the hidden knowledge of the living library than common man. However, they know they can't just take a plant or an herb, take patent on it, and sell it exclusively as their own product. Instead, they take ingredients from the library and add chemicals to it in a mix and can then patent it and sell it, name it, and call it their own. People don't get side effects from the herbs or plants, they get side effects from the chemicals and whatever else Big Pharma put into the pills we get at the pharmacy. Doctors, of course, have not really been taught how to cure somebody's issues, unless it directly has to do with surgery, broken bones, and other obvious things. Instead, they are suppressing the symptoms by giving the patient a pill or two. Most PCPs, primary care physicians, see a lot of patients a day. I am working in the medical field, closely with doctors, and notice that they sometimes see 30 to 40 patients a day, handling 2 to 4 patients simultaneously, putting them in different patients' rooms and go back and forth between them in order to be more efficient. It gives each patient around 5 to 10, if you're lucky you get 15, minutes to explain their problem and for the doctor to find a solution. The solution, more often than not, is to write a prescription for a drug, increasing the strength of a drug the patient is already taking, or changing to another drug. No one cares to look at the underlying reason for the condition the patient has. They just ignore it and gives the patient the most sufficient drug to suppress the condition, in order for the doctor to go over to the next patient. It's a functionally insane money machine. The doctors often get commission on the drugs they prescribe, and drug representatives from Big Pharma, drug reps, who visit the clinics regularly, are there to promote their company's drugs, sometimes bribe the doctor, offering him/her a cruise, first class, or something similar if they switch to this particular company's drug. I have seen this happen on at least 2 occasions. I wasn't supposed to know, so how many times did it really happen and I never found out? The pharmaceutical industry is making an amazing amount of money on people's illnesses. This industry is gigantic to say the least, and it's obvious that no one with such power and wealth, making profit on people's misery, would like us to be well. That would defeat their purpose and be an enormous threat to the entire industry. Think what would happen if people all of a sudden got well, or even worse, if they got well by using other means than the health industry, which is really the sick industry. What a nightmare, not only for Big Pharma and the doctors' offices and hospitals, but for all other industries that on a higher level are working in unison to keep people sick. I am talking about Monsanto, the US-based multinational agricultural biotechnology corporation which gives us genetically manipulated food that makes us ill. I am talking about companies like McDonald's and other like-minded corporations selling junk food to people which makes us overweight and gives us heart problems. People go there to comfort themselves after a long, multitasking day at work or because it tastes good and is fast and easy. See, all these industries, and more, are working together to keep the business going. They are feeding off our sickness and disease, and so are the insurance companies who also are dependent upon that you are sick. A happy, healthy citizen is not the goal of the modern society. Huge profit and greed is one reason why the witch hunt is still alive and well. The attacks on alternative medicine and those who are practicing alternative methods to heal the patients and even find the underlying causes to their illnesses are intense. The best weapon Big Pharma has is the law that you need a license to practice medicine. In reality, this means that if you are not part of the so-called health industry and play by the rules, which means you can only promote medicine distributed by the drug companies, you can go to jail for practicing medicine without a license. This law practically takes care of all resistance. Homeopathic, nephropathic, and naturopathic practices are closed down and the owners punished by law. This is not meant as an attack on doctors, they are just part of the system and thus part of the problem. The cause to the real problem is again, of course, interdimensional. We can choose to look at it from whichever level we want, and there's another level right above it which controls that level. But let's stay on a 3D level a little bit longer for the purpose of this paper. 2.1 The Witch Hunt on Mind-Altering Drugs. There are certain substances in the living library, as when taken in will expand our consciousness and connect with Earth and the multiverse on a higher level. Poppy seed is one, opium, and cannabis, marijuana, another. When you know how to make opium out of poppy, and morphine/heroin out of opium, you have a strong painkiller, provided by nature itself. Opium and morphine, even heroin in the early part of the 1900s, are used by Big Pharma as painkillers. Opium is included in hydrocodone, Vicodin, oxycodone, and OxyContin, although synthetic. It's perfectly okay to go to the doctor and get a prescription if needed, but if you're in pain and don't have insurance and know how to make opium from the living library to ease your pain, it would be illegal. I am not suggesting people should go out and make opium, morphine, or heroin left and right, but it's the suppression of knowledge and the suppression of free will that make people obsessed with things. If they can't have it, they feel they must have it. If people had been given the knowledge of the living library and been taught that all medication they could possibly need is out there for the body and mind to use, it wouldn't be such a big deal. There would always be those who overuse drugs, but it's each and everyone's responsibility to take the consequences for their actions. Then we have the hallucinogenic drugs, like LSD and mushrooms. The LSD molecule was discovered by Dr. Hoffman in the 1930s, and was later introduced to the public by our own intelligence agencies as an experiment during the hippie era in the 1960s and 70s to calm the Vietnam protesters down, among other things. It was also an experiment in mind control, but it became illegalized due to that you can't control somebody who is expanding his/her mind. As usual, some abused it and went insane, while others had wonderful, mind-expanding experiences from it. It's not for everybody. Mind-altering drugs must have a purpose for the person who takes it. It's synthetic, but the mushrooms out in nature are not, of course. And you will have a similar experience by eating them. Again, if a person wants to try a mind-altering drug, it should be in modesty and with a purpose in mind, not just getting high. Because these drugs can take you anywhere. The interesting thing, though, is that the government forbids us to use the living library, as if they owned it. It's illegal to eat hallucinogenic mushrooms as well. Mescaline was used broadly and widely 100 to 150 years ago, especially among artists and creative people, but also among businessmen and regular people. It was the big drug at the time, and it was free. People have always looked for something to break down the barriers and to help them understand reality. These days, when things are heavily controlled in general, so of course are these mind-expanding plants and herbs. I have left marijuana to last, because it's the worst contradiction of them all. The medical field has acknowledged that the plant has healing effects on a patient, it calms people down, it's a great natural pain reliever, and it has good mental benefits as well if used with care. So in certain states in the US, we have something called medical marijuana, which is given to people who would benefit from it, but you'll go to jail if you plant it and use it yourself without permission from a doctor. It's of course hypocrisy. And the animals have always eaten mind-expanding plants and herbs to expand their minds, because it's free out there to eat. And believe it or not, but animals are much more multidimensional than we are, not only because of their intake, but just naturally. The deer, for example, love to eat various mushrooms and get high. I am not making this up. In the ancient days, people had cannabis tattoos and were even buried with their cannabis seeds beside them. They were using the library, knowing what was in it. They borrowed some and planted some like was the purpose of the library in the first place. Our ancestors were far more familiar with their environment than we are. This plant has long enhanced people's consciousness when taken in moderate doses. This, and other plants from the library can literally open doors of perception into higher densities and realities, and hence speed up the ascension process to a certain degree. One can actually see other realities, which are basically as real as this one. Aldous Huxley wrote the book Doors of Perceptions decades ago, which was a huge inspiration for Jim Morrison and the Doors. They got the name for the band from that book. The rest of the band could take these drugs more moderately, but the possessed Morrison could not, and after a while that had more to do with his entity possession than to expand his mind consciously. I am not suggesting that the reader should be illegal and go out and do things that can get you in trouble with the law by any means, but if you still decide to use any of the above, use it wisely and have respect for the substance, don't go overboard. It's a natural thing, but we must learn how to use things in moderation. For the record, I am not taking any of these plants and herbs myself, and haven't done for years. I tried most of it in my younger days, but now I can reach the same heights by working with myself. However, I see nothing wrong with using what is there for us to use, only the government does. By the way, did you know that the founding fathers grew hemp and smoked marijuana? I suggest you check out the brilliant author, Doug Uerche, whom also happens to be a friend of mine. I have posted quite a few articles of his on my Illuminati News website, and he digs deeply into the marijuana and LSD conspiracies and much, much more. 3. The future back to using the living library. Years ago, people thought they were really on track by going organic. This is a good start, although it will not quite do the trick anyway because of the way food is manufactured, even when it's organic. However, food grown with conscious awareness is what we need to regain our health, not just without the lack of poison. This is a whole other level. The Pleiadians have a lot to say about this, because their ancestors were the ones, in conjunction with other beings, who created the living library in the first place. Magnets, pyramid shapes, planting things underneath a pyramid, and moving a pyramid around a garden can generate as much energy as the native people did in the US and around the world to balance the forces, always talking to, and blessing the earth. Once in a while, kissing your hand and putting it down on the ground, we have so much to learn from those whom we almost totally terminated in our insanity. Pleiadian Lecture, December 4 to 5, 2010, Bursts of Acceleration, CD number 2, Track 7. Today, when we take everything for granted, humanity as a whole has a great need to feel gratitude for the intelligence of the elements, the magic of it, and the movements of things, and how nature feeds us. To put out crystals can work, talking to plants. In the early 1950s, L. Ron Hubbard, 1911 to 1986, the founder of Scientology, was measuring the consciousness of plants and a picture was taken of him putting electrodes on tomato plants. He knew already then that plants had consciousness, but all the way up to present day, this picture has created great ridicule amongst scientists and the general public. No, he was just way before his time, and now it's catching up with him. Fewer and fewer people are laughing. There is no doubt that there is consciousness in everything, and talking to plants that you are planting and growing in your garden, and giving them love is the most fundamental thing you can do to get healthy products. Also, always talk to the sun when dealing with the elements and planting things. The highest levels of consciousness are light and unconditional love, and the sun is giving us both light, love, and information. She is our higher self and she will hear you and know who you are when you address her directly. All these things are absolutely necessary to grow healthy food. In the old days, before the industrialization and further back, people used to go out in the field, lay down together and make love. Of course, it can be a totally different sensation to make love outside than to always do it inside, but the sexual energies are very powerful and the orgasm exponentially so. It literally opens up portals and shoots the energies out into the universe, but also enhances growth around the area where the lovemaking took place. Especially if the people who do it are already very close and truly love each other and are on the same frequency, the effects can be very profound. The energies highly increased the fertility of the land. They shared their joy with all the plants and herbs in the garden with the energy built in an orgasmic nature. That was what lovemaking in the garden was about in the old days. People had a greater knowledge of things that matters back then. These days, there is not much sharing anymore. People are suing each other as soon as they get a chance, finding new ways to earn an easy buck so they can get lazier and be home and watch more TV. That is not coming together, it's separation. And not only are we separated as human beings by technology and such, we have also totally forgotten how to energetically connect with nature as a human species. We take the earth for granted, rape her, disrespect her, forget that she exists, and know nothing about that she's a living being, hosting people like us so we can have an experience. Where is the gratitude, the recognition, the love for our planet? Where's the respect? In spite of the lack of all these things, Mother Earth is still housing us patiently, but she is tumbling and struggling under the pressure. Still, she is giving us all we need, and more, to survive and have a more than meaningful life. We need to learn how to share our love and consciousness with Mother Earth and use her and give to her the way it was supposed to be. Yes, the living library is beautiful to look at, Earth is stunning in her presence, and it's for us to enjoy, but it's also meant for us to use it as a living garden, with respect and a give-and-take situation, where we replant what we borrow in a constant symbiosis with nature. By being in nature and relearning how to deal with the elements, we learn when there's going to be rain, sun, storms, thunder. You will soon get to a level where we can sense it on a metaphysical level and in your body, rather than only know it by visual signs. It's a part of being multidimensional. The global elite, who know the power of words, always use the term fight for freedom or war against drugs, etc. Like we've discussed earlier, by fighting something we are actually getting more of what we don't want, and we are creating separation. Instead, let's claim what we want, we claim freedom, we reclaim the living library. This way we are already creating inside what it is we want. Many have asked me if Earth is a common planet out there, with all its beauty and variety in plant and animal life. Have taken part of the information from many different metaphysical sources, I have come to the conclusion that although Earth is not the only planet out there with tremendous beauty, it is in larger terms quite unique. There are myriads of planets in the cosmos which host intelligent life, but if we would travel to them, we may find many of them deserted and quite barren. First of all, it's a matter of landing at a time where there is life on the planet, which is not always easy to do if we don't know the right coordinates and the point in local time. Others are cloaked with technology so that they look barren when they are not, but it's also very common that intelligent life forms live inside the planet instead of on its surface. Earth is unique in its beauty and its variety, but also in that the inner Earth is very rich on life forms, both plants, animals, and higher intelligent beings. We will discuss this more in a separate paper. And once we have entered the caverns leading to the portals to inner Earth and been able to pass through them, we will find a beautiful world inside Earth as well. So let's feel gratitude for having the privilege of being here now at this time, on a remarkable planet which is willing to host us, take care of our bodies who are our tickets to here, and start getting along with self and others, no matter differences. Enjoy the living library and use it with care and respect, but use it. Forgive those who have done you harm, and forgive yourself and make up for the harm you may have done, and if you can't meet with people to tell them in person, do it in thought and in dream state, and you will heal along the lines of time and come together as a whole Earth being. Your different incarnations will be healed by the work you are doing now, and you can complete Experiment Earth with grace and pride, having had the most valuable overall experience possible. Enjoy life, the planet, and everything on it, and realize it is here for you and you are here for her. And you and Mother Earth help each other heal. 4. DNA, what it is, and how to reclaim what was taken from us. DNA. This is a very touchy subject. Scientists, whether they are mainstream or rouge, have very firm ideas of what DNA is, or even better, what it's not. Earth science when comes to DNA/RNA is significantly different than that told by most metaphysical sources. Dr. A.R. Borden of Life Physics Group California, LPGC, whom I've come to know quite well over the last months to almost a year now, is quite upset about the way metaphysics often looks upon the DNA problem humans seem to have. He told me that DNA/RNA needs to be understood for humankind to continue to evolve. To that, I agree 100%. It's extremely important. I gave him the metaphysical version, or the watered-down version of it, rather, thinking he might already know that information. Now, afterwards, I don't think he ever looked too deeply into it, thinking it was too way out there and inaccurate. Dr. Borden, when he has time, hopefully, will write a simplified scientific explanation of what RNA/DNA is, so I am not going to go into the mainstream version of what it is and how it works until I have read his article, and in the meantime I am going to dig into the metaphysical aspect of this subject, which in my opinion is explaining it in much easier terms but is also making a lot of sense. Until I am proven otherwise, I will look at earth science when comes to this subject as accurate up to a certain point to where our human knowledge ends and the metaphysical knowledge starts. I think it's very important that we study this issue from a broader perspective, no matter if our scientists agree or not. Some of these metaphysical sources are of high quality, and I have looked into them quite deeply and find no reason why they would deceive us on this subject, and they are very serious about it, too, because they know the importance. They also tell us straight out that even the best of scientists on Earth do not understand the metaphysical and multidimensional concept of the RNA/DNA, and that it will probably take generations before that will happen. After all, the double helix was not discovered until 1958, http://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/DNA number sign history _of_DNA_research right parenthesis, 53 years ago. Also, in his essay, The Link, Borden admits to that we know very little about RNA-DNA. The question is, those scientists who discard the following information, can they create a new species with the knowledge they have now? The answer is no. Can the metaphysical beings who are explaining how DNA-RNA works create a new species with the information they have? The answer is yes. That should speak volumes. A common misunderstanding is that we think we can track the genome, or the gene pool, but it's not going to be totally successful, because in the multiverse, it changes all the time, and it's fluid. In the far, far past, in our terms, a lot of different species throughout the universe contributed their DNA to the living library. Cosmic master biogeneticists were then able to use these different forms of DNA to design functional life forms for the living library. They seeded the library. Today we can see all these different races on Earth: Caucasians, black people, red people, yellow people, brown people, all sorts of humans. We are all looking similar, but we don't look the same. Same thing with the cosmic beings, they all have a head, a torso, 2 arms, and 2 legs, because it's a prototype, a template throughout cosmos, but from that stems a huge variety. Not all worlds are the same. Not all of them are a mix of different genetics. Earth is an experiment, and in these terms quite, but not totally, unique. Now, when things are speeding up here, all these cosmic beings who contributed to our genetics are very interested to see the product of their contribution. This is not a small thing, it's the end product of a long-term experiment with a biokind, humans, consisting of DNA from a myriad of beings in order to become the gatekeepers, the library cards to the living library. 300,000 years ago, we were already almost evolved to accomplish this task when we were interrupted in the process. But now all these species from cosmos are holding their breaths to see how well their experiment turned out. The human race is not just any race in the cosmos, some say we are royal in more than one definition of the word. The DNA which was part of the mix was contributed by royal races out in the universe, and we are connected to them. And what we do with our energy, due to the connection we have with all these species, affects them as well. Yes, the human race is special, indeed. This little planet in the outskirts of a galaxy of billions of galaxies can have a great impact on many things in cosmos. Mind-boggling? Big responsibility? Absolutely. Separate from our genome code are other codes, master numbers and information that is invaluable to the multiverse. So in larger terms, great beings have stored things within the DNA of Earth life forms, not only in humans, but in rocks, plants, and animals as well. This is for us to explore. Until we know how to read it and understand it's there, we can search forever. Pleiadian Lecture August 13, 2011 to August 14, 2011, Awakening to the Sun, CD 3, track number 4. This was a way to have things hidden in plain sight. Many cosmic beings are very anxious to find out what is in our DNA, and that's part of why we have those abduction scenarios. Beings, especially those whose DNA is deteriorating, like is the case with the Zeta Greys, are very curious to find out the secrets of our DNA. Where is the gold? Where is the gem? They want to know so they can use it. However, they do not have the key to unlock the secrets, so they are not succeeding, to their huge frustration. We have sister planets in other parts of the galaxy, on the other side, far away from Earth, which are sort of parallel worlds, where there are similar things stored. The beauty we see around us is quite unique for our planet and its sister planets in other parts of the Milky Way, in terms of third density, and we, who are the living library, are the ones who are creating this beauty together. Humans, plants, animals, can you feel something bigger emerging in these pictures? Good, because this is much bigger than any of us here on Earth can yet perceive. Our DNA is like a modem, it allows us to operate in different realities, in different dimensions and densities simultaneously. So, the DNA is in other words multidimensional and not something located only in the 3D reality, like most scientists think. We have created a world based on linear time, based on separation. There is nothing wrong with this, and in fact, it's been a wonderful learning experience for us and for interdimensional beings who have followed our progress, but the game is over and we are going back to thinking multi-D. The 3D part of the experiment is over. We need to expand into the cosmos by activating the light inside of us so that the experiment can get to another level. The universe in our sector of the galaxy is still relatively unstable in the sense of polarity and the respect thereof. Wars are still raging, imperatives are clashing with imperatives, there is unhappiness out there as well as there is happiness, joy, and peace. Humans can become the stabilizers as the key masters to the living library, and that is our task in the future if we are up to it and can pull through. And yes, I believe we can. 4.1 The early human had 12-strand DNA, corresponding with 12 chakras. In metaphysics, it is quite established that humankind was quite highly evolved before the Anunnaki came to Earth and started manipulating our DNA, some 300 to 250,000 years ago. At that time, there was more than one version of human-like creatures on Earth, but at least one of these species was quite highly evolved. This also makes sense if we are to believe the creator gods, whose ancestors are equivalent to many of these metaphysical sources. They are here to re-establish the living library and remedy what was destroyed or altered. Even Rouge scientists, like these of LPGC, know that life was seeded and that the original creator gods of this living library were the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, and a few others. But the agreement ends where DNA starts, more or less. However, if we think about it, the original creator gods, who seeded and planted the living library, also created evolved beings who were supposed to guard and use the library for their own pleasure and others from outer space. It is only logical that they would create a quite highly evolved, intelligent bio-mind, which could then be housed by a soul/information cloud who wanted to experience the living library and evolve here. So, at one time, our DNA was intact. The earlier humans had 12-strand DNA, one corresponding with each chakra. 7 chakras are placed within the body, and 5 outside of it. We were like a wonderful library ourselves, where the information was all catalogued and referenced and we could find anything we wanted to find instantly. The 7 body chakras are as follows. Chakras 1 to 3 are dealing with survival, sexuality, and perceptual feeling, also called the root chakras. The above 7 chakras are the ones we most often work with because they are connected with the body. Albeit, many people think these chakras is all there is. The Pleiadians and the Guardian Alliance, among others, are working on the idea of a universe based on 12 when comes to human perceptions, and therefore the chakra system is based on this number as well. To go further up the chakra system and connect with the non-physical chakras, the person needs to figure out what is going on by finding new ways to do so, without even being totally sure it is real. Chakra 8 is within our realm of activity. It hovers 12 inches or more above our heads. Most people keep their 8th chakra close to the physical body. Chakra 9 is also quite close to the body, within a few feet from it. When these 9 helices are formed, this chakra will move out into the atmosphere of Earth to become more of an Earth chakra, connecting into the grid work. It's a link. Chakra 10 is much further out, as are the 11th and 12th chakras. The 10th chakra, once it is in line and plugged in, will be in your solar system. Chakra 11 will move out into our galactic system. Chakra 12 will be located and anchored someplace in this universe. Chakra 4 is the heart, center of compassion and connectedness to all things. Chakra 5 is the throat chakra, related to speech. Chakra 6 is the third eye, the vision. Chakra 7 is the crown chakra, which opens to the knowingness that one's identity goes beyond the physical realm. As we evolve back to what we once were, we will receive information from these personal centers, because they are collective centers as well. As we learn to translate the chakra experiences, life is not the same anymore. And it's happening now on the planet, big time. With all these 12 chakras open, you can imagine what possibilities are opening up as well. There was a time, more than 250,000 years ago, when the human species occupied higher dimensional frequencies and we had the ability to surf through realities and manipulate matter.